Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital, the sports tech venture capital company. And on this show, I interview top sports entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives who are shaping and many times changing the overall sports business industry. And today we're going to talk about the business of sports. We're going to talk about the agency world. We're going to talk about brands. And we are really excited to have David Schwab, the Executive Vice President of Octagon, on our show today. David, welcome to our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
Thanks. I got so excited I interrupted you while you were finishing that. Yeah, thanks for having me. Ready to get into this.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to have you on the show. I mean, I think, one of the things that I was so excited to do, and I normally sort of jump in and want to hear some of your background, but one of the things I want to first touch on is, yes, you're an executive vice president at Octagon, but you do something really interesting on LinkedIn and across all social media. You have your 3 questions, and I want to hear about kind of how this all came about. And it's amazing some of the incredible people across the sports business industry that you've had answer your 3 questions.
Yeah, well, kudos to you to keep an active podcast going, audio and video, which takes a lot of effort and time. And I've cheated a little bit with 3 questions to make it more in word format. I had a couple podcasts before, and as I've evolved a little bit, at the end of every one of those conversations, I always felt like I learned what someone changed in their career and what drives them forward. And so I took that into this new idea of what's a mistake you learned of earlier that's now strength, what's your daily purpose, and what are you most passionate about, personally or professionally, which is always interesting because how people answer that. And do they talk about their employees and their team, or do they talk about, as Marty Fish, former professional tennis player, talked about today, mixed martial arts? So you really never know what you're going to get from the people, but it's a quick hit. And for the audience, it's a very quick 1 minute, 2 minutes, once a week to just get a feel for what others are thinking about, and hopefully gives them a thought of what's a mistake that they can evolve on and how they go about their daily life with purpose and passion.
Well, I was going to ask you if there were any sort of surprises. Certainly, you mentioned what Marty Fish said, but are there others or other people that you've had answer the 3 questions that have really surprised you, or things that have really kind of opened your eyes and said, wow, that's amazing?
Yeah, I think not about what surprises, I'd say commonalities. You hear a ton of team and not I, and leaders that recognize that you can't get to the level that one wants to, maybe, without everyone from the person that's turning the lights on in the morning to the person that turns them off at night and the computers running during the day. So you hear a lot of that team. Also, what's interesting is the mistake piece and when that happened and when people have figured out it happened. Wouldn't surprise you that it's in the early 20s when people are talking about that first mistake. But in the response back, it also feels like it's not until their 30s when they've realized it's a mistake and turned it into a strength. And it's not a surprise, but to me, that's interesting. And it's for everyone to take a deep breath. You're not going to solve things overnight. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. But as you know, and I know, we're in it for the long game and decades of work. And so as long as you're improving and trying to learn and figure out what those teachable moments are, those are good things.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, and you've had some amazing people so far, and I can't wait to continue to watch it. And I would say to anyone who's listening or watching the show, you got to subscribe, to your 3 questions, or just follow you on social. And it's something that you definitely can learn something. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
Well, listen, David, I'd love to hear your story. You've been at Octagon for a long time now. I'd love to hear how Octagon has evolved. There was a great piece in the Sports Business Journal recently about the history of Octagon, and you've been there for a lot of it.
Yeah. So as your reference, we hit our 40th anniversary, which is unbelievable. It started as Advantage International and morphed into Octagon. I started the first day it was Octagon, which was October 1, 1999. I mean, almost 24 years ago, which is incredible. I've done three things over those 24 years. I consider myself a bit of a corporate entrepreneur. I like to create and solve problems, but I like to do it under the backbone of a bigger company with smarter people all around me to use that expertise and resources when we can. So when I started back in 99, it was to run the communications for Octagon. And that was corporately, but also the talent we represented. Back then, it was the Anna Kournikovas, John Elway's, Jerry Stackhouses of the world. That's changed quite a bit. And that role went from comms to more of a broader marketing and sales role across the talent piece. And I did that for 7 or 8 years and recognized that there was a gap in the market. And this is pre what we would call now influencer marketing and pre social platforms and almost matching people together via technology. But there felt to be a gap in the market that, as a generalization, agents, marketers, managers understood their client, their talent, athlete, actress, film star, chef, but they didn't fully know how the brand piece worked and why Walmart put items on a shelf and how distribution worked. Likewise, brands knew how that worked, but really didn't have a great idea how to use talent. And I would say the same for many marketing agencies and nonprofits. So I wrote the business plan and the Jerry Maguire, not to leave, but the new idea to create a business called First Call, which was now flipping sides and representing brands, marketing agencies, and nonprofits, and teaching them when to use talent, and more importantly, when not to use talent. But if so, who, how, and then to manage those programs. And I did that about 10 years. We scaled that business up nice. And then about 2 years before
you leave that, talk about some of the brands that you've worked with and maybe some of the programs that you and things that you implemented with them.
Yeah, we were fortunate, and that business still continues today under our Rogers and Cowan umbrella. We're fortunate to do thousands and thousands of deals. So I won't give the laundry list, but to name a few that to me that I remember quite, I think about. We helped Ronald McDonald House create their celebrity advisory board, first ever. There was no such thing. They were using Ronald McDonald House, were using local celebrities in local markets from a publicity standpoint. But the question was, how do you create a toolkit to create national influencers and then allow local affiliates to tap into them or give them the right strategies to make it better to a consumer or maybe even to corporate partners that they were trying to fundraise with. So that's from a nonprofit side. On a brand side, we were fortunate, one of my favorites, and rest in peace, Bob Saget, we brought the Full House team together of Bob, John Stamos, and Dave Coolio for the Super Bowl commercial with Dan and Oikos. And it was the first time bringing the Full House gents back together for a commercial opportunity in their life. And John had been a partner of Dan for several years, and then he also was part of that idea thinking, and he's brilliant in that thought and the creative too. So it really goes across the board. I mean, IBM was a client, and my colleagues were doing Bob Dylan's first partnership with Watson and different Nobel Peace Prize winners. So it wasn't just sports, it was finding brands and nonprofits and ones that thought people of influence could better their business. And then if so, why would someone make sense? What category do they come from? And what would those tactics actually be to achieve those objectives?
Fascinating. So I cut you off as you were going to the next part, but I that's amazing that, bringing the Full House team together and do it. I mean, that's really fun.
Yeah, it's great. The team, and it's not me. I mean, it's a great team, and now there's dozens of people that are doing it still every day. So my third act is, and it's a lot of what you live on a daily basis, and that's more of an Octagon Ventures, and it's not capital v venture capital, but more lowercase. And what does Octagon look like? What does sports marketing, entertainment marketing look like 10 years from now? And with all of our resources and relationships, to talent, to brands, to leagues, partners, teams, clubs, how can we use that influence to maybe better some of these growth businesses, and trying to understand what technologies are going to be relevant for all of us in the future. And I don't think about it from the lens of sports entertainment. I think of it as the lens of the future, and ones where our industry can better that future. So it might have nothing to do with sports if you just looked at their mission or objective, but it might be one where the tactics within sports or entertainment or film could help that business succeed.
Interesting. And again, I'd love to hear, and have you share a little bit of some of the things that you've done on this venture side and some of the interesting projects that you've worked on.
Yeah, there's a number of them. Some have exited, some are active. And I think if you look at the clients that Octagon has on the talent side, because I'm looking at it from three different points of view there. One, where can it help Octagon, and where does the industry get better? Two, helping the agents and wealth managers at Octagon if their clients have an interest. And three, as an angel, where I can maybe deploy some as well. What's fascinating on the talent side is each talent, based on where they're from, how old they are, what their life experience is, their interest could be anything from mental health to material science to space to health and wellness. And so where that's a benefit to me is what we get to see is really interesting. I mean, one that I've been fortunate to be involved in and I watch daily is the soda beverage Olipop that has such a small penetration right now relative some to maybe the big boys, but they're coming and they are considered a big boy, and they have figured out how to take a soda and put the proper ingredients into it to have very little sugar, high fiber, probiotic, a better for you soda. And you can see it just from the investors that they have around their table, institutional, but also from a talent standpoint. So it's interesting to me to find businesses that I think 5 to 10 years from now, there will be more shelf space for, or ones that the people that are holding those brands or even like e-commerce want them under their stable in the future.
One of the things that certainly stands out at Octagon is one of your clients, Steph Curry, and the fact, how he's just, I mean, it's amazing to just see how he's grown as a person, as a player, as a brand ambassador. Can you talk a little bit about, whether it's Steph or some of the other, talent that you've worked with and how they've grown over the years?
Yeah, well, Stefan is a special person, and he has so many people. It starts with him. What you see is who he is, and all those positive qualities that come through when you're watching a game or listening to a news conference are the same personality traits that he is with everybody throughout the day. He's got an unbelievable team. He's got a business team within his under Stefan called SC30. And within SC30, he's got Unanimous, which is a production arm. He's got Underrated, which is helping golfers and basketball players that maybe weren't recruited early, give them a fair shot. And he's got a nonprofit, Eat, Learn, Play, that's doing unbelievable stuff for underdeserved or not underdeserved, needy children in the Oakland area and throughout. And Octagon, between Jeff Austin and Frank Zecca and many others, they've done a great job in supporting that. But everything, I mean, I think when you're working with talent, the first is finding talent that wants to work with you. And that could be from an agency standpoint, but also ones that want to work with children or foundation or brands. It's a lot easier when that's their desire too. And he's a pleasure. And I'm sure if I spoke to Jeff, who's been with Stefan since he was with Dell, his dad, playing, would nod his head and say yes too.
That's fascinating. It's one of the things I really wanted to hear from you. I mean, what it's, whether it's a brand as a, the company, whether it's a person, how do you go about selecting the types of people and companies that you work with at Octagon?
Yeah, so you've got a number of different sides to that: talent, brand, events, and then I guess me looking at it from an investor standpoint. I think
Right.
on the talent side, I'd raise my hand to say I shouldn't be the one answering that question, and it should be the agent and the recruiters and the client servicers. That group of hundreds of people that are out in hockey, basketball, tennis courts all day long, and talking to families and young adults and coaches and trying to understand a number of things, not only just the talent of somebody, a man or a woman, but also who are they as a person and what do they want to achieve. That's really important, so that if you are recruiting or trying to align, that you are bringing in people that have the same morals, ethics, personality traits, goals, objectives as you. As I said earlier with Stefan, when you can align that, it makes work. It's still work, but it makes it easier. On a brand standpoint, I think the business team, the consultants, are looking for brands that think their demographic, their audience, uses sports entertainment as a vehicle to build awareness or legitimacy or credibility, or the brand can use sports and entertainment as a touch point, maybe even on a sales or a hospitality perspective. And so our team are looking for those types of brands and doing the science piece behind that to make sure that that data is right, that the audience that they think they're trying to reach does fit that. And then the art comes into, okay, once that is right, where should they play? How do they play? Is it a film festival or a food festival, or is it a rodeo or Super Bowl, Masters? So there's a lot of different places for brands to reach out and communicate and engage with their audience. But you got to figure out what that audience wants and likes first before you do that.
You talked about the fact that you've now been at Octagon 23 years now on the venture side. You look at the world over the last 23 years and how much technology has changed it. Are there certain things that you're now looking at, thinking about, that that you sort of say, as we like to say at 76 Capital, what are sort of the next things that you're seeing out there today?
Yeah, I think data, personalization, and efficiency would be broad words to use. And then how do you reach some, or what is the product that comes out of that? And that's where you get into AI and gaming and betting. I think material science and space is part of that future. I think what's really hard, and you live this every day, and I've lived it more and more the last few years, is when businesses used to incubate, they had a 5-year window before anyone knew what they were doing. And every startup pivots and pivots a lot before they succeed. And these businesses were able to pivot multiple times really before the market could yell at them. And now all of these businesses across data and personalization are live and in the public from day one. Yes, there's some of these are starting in stealth and they're doing their best to stay in stealth, but the sectors are public. And instantly the feedback is from social platforms or investors is way more in the face. And I think it's harder. It's harder for a company. I mean, it's good because it makes them pivot faster, for sure, because they get immediate feedback. But it's harder because the market already has a feeling or an expectation of what this business should be versus allowing a company to mature. So to me, that's kind of tangent from what your question was, but that's what I watch a lot too. I watch as companies are pivoting and sectors are pivoting. What's the audience say? What does the media say? Because some of that will influence that pivot, and that might be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is. It is amazing, how fast you can either succeed, hopefully not fail, have to pivot very quickly in the market today, because it's just the way that things are going. I mean, so when you're working with companies and they have to make a change, or they have to do something a little differently than at least they thought they were going to have to do, or that's what it said on their business plan. How do you help them? What are some of the things that you and your team at Octagon do to help some of these companies?
Yeah, well, belief is critical there. I mean, when you make a decision, you need to stand by your decision and put your energy behind it. And if there's the time and place to pivot, fine. But you've got to you have to give that idea or that pivot a chance to succeed. And I think it's really hard, because the moment it's out there is the moment that Twitter is going to talk right back to you. And so a founder has to do a very good job of keeping their head down and delivering on what they said they're going to do, while listening a bit, but not everything you read or see means you have to change. And so I think we are angels on the shoulder to an extent, trying to make sure that they're staying true to what they said they were going to do, or what their board wants them to do, as well as being a consultant for them across a number of different areas of just brand growth.
I mean, when you started, back day one, right? When Octagon, as you said, it was amazing. When Octagon changed their name to Octagon, could you have imagined that there would actually be a ventures arm, that what you were, this agency would actually be in this business?
Well, I appreciate that. I think we all, and that's why I said ventures lowercase v. I think all of us have had, I mean, ventures lowercase v can be anything from R&D or business development. There's a lot of other words one could use that could fit there. I appreciate the energy across all of Octagon that knows they need to fulfill on the client's objectives, and that's what we have been hired to do every day, with one eye always looking to how can we be better. I do think when I started in 1999, and this is not an Octagon thing, I just think the industry, it was much more tactical, and you didn't even have the ability to think about what tomorrow was. You were getting your news on the 11 o'clock local news, or waiting for the newspaper to come in the morning. So that's where technology has allowed everybody to think more forward looking, that we just didn't have the chance to do back then.
So being in the agency world all these years, I mean, is there an event that you either love to go to all the time, or an event that you hope to go to at some point? I mean, is there anything out there that you haven't tried, and which are the ones that you really enjoy going to go and be at?
Yeah, that's kind of a loaded question. I think it depends on kids' interests. It depends on clients at different times. I think the Super Bowl will always be the activity in the States where most of our industry gets together. And many, as you know, are leaving on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and watching the game at home with their family. But from that Wednesday to Saturday has become a great opportunity to catch up, and more so over the last 5 years, as people probably are traveling a little bit less. I do think people look forward to that. I enjoy smaller sports events to see how operations are run and what marketing looks like. I mean, I love going to a minor league baseball park, or even a bowling alley, because sports are not just the Super Bowl or the Masters or the World Cup, that it starts at a youth level. It's a recreational piece, and it's also a hobby for families. and it's the entire kind of sector of what we do every day. I think minor league baseball is incredible. I think it's a great place for people coming out of school to start working. You get to sit with the GM as well as the clubby every single day. You get to talk to fans and players. You can really see firsthand how product moves, why tickets move. I think minor league baseball is a great place, and so that's one of my favorites to enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. You mentioned earlier very quickly about sports betting, and I think what's really interesting is there's over the last 5 years now where sports betting has become now legal in over 38 states across the U.S. The world of the casino world, the sports betting world, the fact that world is so good at marketing. And then the world of sports marketing have started to come together. And I always keep saying that there's so much that both sides can learn from each other, but weren't really allowed to talk to each other for so many years. And now over the last 5 years, I've gotten a chance to really start to at least get to know each other. And I look forward to the next 5 years to see what that will really look like as we really start to bring the world of the FanDuels, the DraftKings, the Caesars, the MGMs, et cetera, come together with the NFL, the NBA, all the different agencies like you guys. And, I'd love to get your thought on that. Like, and if you believe that that's the next 5 years will even be more interesting as these worlds, which had never gotten a chance to really talk to each other because it was illegal to do that, but now you can talk, and what that really means.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible when you talk about 38 states and 5 years. I mean, try to just even grasp that. I mean, think about how much is talked about now. And there's multiple brands in the space, and some are going to succeed and maybe some won't, or they won't have the same success as the others. But betting will have success, right? The sector will have success. And now it's figuring out how to add fuel to that. But that's incredible when you really try to think 25% or 38, do the math, almost 25%. It's still not legal. 5 years ago, it wasn't legal in any state, Vegas besides Nevada. So we're just getting going, and that is one where it's getting going and live in front of all of our eyes. So we are watching the marketing wins and the mistakes, and so people probably have a deeper opinion, and that's one where I go back to my comment. All right. Books, betting books, startups, and data. Focus on what you're trying to do 3 to 5 years down the road, because in getting there, there's going to be this along the way. But the ideas that are going to come of it are going to be great, and where you're going to be able to bet in even just a fun way. It doesn't have to be. I think that's a misnomer too. Betting doesn't have to be this whale betting on the Super Bowl. Betting can be $5 between you and me on whatever is a fun hobby that just keeps the passion together, so that we're maybe even more interested to spend time together and spend 3 hours watching an activity. So I think the industry will get smarter to reach everybody and figure out fun ways to engage.
Well, every single time I do one of these shows, time just flies. And, we're getting to the end of our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. And it's been awesome having, David Schwab, the Executive Vice President of Octagon, on our show. And David, before we go, I have to ask you, and one of the things I love to hear from all of our guests, and we call it our Sports Leadership Show. And, in this, because we want to hear, was there a leader? Was there a mentor? Was there someone in your life that has helped you get you to where you are today?
Yeah. Always easy to start with mom and dad, but I'm going to quickly put them aside for a second, because I feel like it's an easy out. I had 2 mentors in my teen years that have stuck with me before I ever had a full-time job. I had a coach named Dave Skaggs, who was a local youth coach and high school coach who did an unbelievable job. His teams never had the best talent, but they always succeeded, and not succeeded necessarily on the field, but just as people. And he meant very much. He's meant a lot to me. He's unfortunately passed in recent years, but Scooter Skaggs and his family meant a lot to me. It helped me growing up and put life in perspective. I grew up in Rockville, Maryland, and there was a radio station, W Light Radio, in my high school senior year. I interned, went to school in the morning, and then interned in the afternoon for a gentleman named Dave Adler, who was a promotions manager and then later became an on-air DJ. And the fact that he offered me and willing to give me an internship when I was 17 years old in high school and spent time with me on details and being respectful to people, he's helped a lot too. So it's interesting when you ask the question, I think about it, a lot of mentors and colleagues, and there's plenty at Octagon and around that I still learn from every day. Part of that 3 questions is the learning there too. But those 2 guys which are almost 40 years, 35 years ago. I remember a lot of their messages to me then ring true to me now.
That's awesome. So I'm sure you knew I was going to ask this, but I have to ask you, I'll ask you your 3 questions: your mistake, your purpose, and your passion. Can you quickly, share with us your 3?
Yeah. The mistake I learned, I've been asked, it's funny, I've got plenty. And so I have been asked since I started this what some of them are. I thought I knew more than I did, for sure. And if you sit and just listen to other people, not only do they give great perspectives, but they open your eyes a little bit. And we can all listen a bit more and learn from others. But that's for sure. I would raise my hand now and say, I thought I knew more. My purpose, I love to learn and solve problems. And so that's what motivates me every day to keep going. And it doesn't have to be in sports marketing. It can be family, it could be professional, it can be with friends, but I always have that desire to learn. My passion, I'll start with my 3 kids, of course, but I think soccer or football is a passion. Growing up playing from Scooter Skaggs, still play with some of the dads in the neighborhood, and fortunate to coach my 3 kids when they were the age to be coached, and now watch European football on the weekends with my son. So I think from a personal level, that's a passion that has been a lifelong joy for me.
Well, this has been awesome. I can't, I'm sure that the next 4 years before the World Cup comes to the U.S., it's going to be, this is your moment as a soccer player, right?
It's going to be a great moment for everyone in this country. I think we will have not seen anything like this, and it's going to be an exciting. Next 4 years will be really exciting for this country and the sport.
Very, very exciting. Well, again, David, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show, and wish you and your team and everyone around you and your family a lot of luck, and have great things happen to you and all the things that you do in and around the world of sports and media, et cetera.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.